Hi everyone, I'm Tim Hamilton with StellarQuest Real Estate, and in this video we're going to be quickly discussing a very interesting article that was recently published by Redfin, where they released some data showing the percentage of home sellers who are giving concessions to buyers when they sell their home. So this should be interesting and helpful for anyone who's thinking about buying or selling a home, so you can understand the market that we're currently in and what you can and can't get away with in today's market when it comes to negotiating. So if you are thinking about buying or selling a home, you can call, text, or email me anytime. You can find all of my contact information in the description, or you can call this phone number here, which is our office phone number, but you're not going to get very far if you try texting that one. So to get into the article here, they're stating that 44% of home sellers are giving concessions to buyers across the country. And this is according to their own internal Redfin data that is reported by Redfin buyers agents. And so this is up from 39.3% in the first quarter of last year. So we're starting to see that it's more common for sellers to give concessions to home buyers. And they're defining a concession here as anything that helped reduce the buyer's total cost of purchasing the home. That could include money towards repairs, closing costs, and or mortgage rate buy downs. It does not include situations in which the seller lowered the list price of their home or lowered the price due to a negotiation with a buyer. So they're specifically referring to what we typically call a closing cost credit, which could be applied to the buyer's escrow fees, title fees, mortgage origination fees. Basically, it just reduces the amount of money that they have to bring into escrow for closing costs. And they're not mentioning the buyer's agent commission in this. So because of the rule changes, it is also now becoming more common for buyers to ask for the seller to pay for their buyer's agent commission as a concession, but it doesn't look like they're counting that as a concession. So these concessions would be something above that, specifically for repairs or mortgage rate buy downs most commonly. And then they're also stating here that not only are more people offering a concession, but we are seeing more sellers that are accepting prices under the asking price and offering a concession still. And then, in some cases, even lowering the asking price, accepting offer below the asking price, and then still giving a concession to the buyers. So the statistics they have here is that roughly 1 in 5 homes, 21.5%, that sold during the first quarter had a final sale price below the asking price in addition to a concession, and that's up from 18.5% last year. And then roughly 1 in 6, 16.2%, had a price cut and a concession, which is up from 13% a year earlier. And about 1 in 10, 9.9%, had all three. So they gave a concession, they had to do a price cut, and they had to accept an offer below the original list price, which is up from 8% a year earlier. So these aren't drastic changes, but you can see that the market is slowing. And as the market slows, sellers have to be willing to negotiate a little bit more with the buyers. And next up, we have the percentage of home sales that were canceled. And so this would be after a buyer gets their offer accepted. For one reason or another, they decide to cancel the deal. And most commonly, this would be because something pops up on a home inspection, or the appraisal comes in lower than the purchase price. And for one reason or another, these issues can't be reconciled between the buyer and the seller. And so the buyer decides to walk away and go look for another home. And so in March 2025, 13.4% of all pending sales canceled, which was up from 13.2% a year earlier. So it's increased slightly. And this is largely due to the fact that the market has slowed down. So it's a lot easier for a buyer to walk away from the deal because they know that, most likely there's going to be another home out there that they can buy and, maybe get a little bit of a better deal, or maybe a home that doesn't have the same issues as the one that they were originally in escrow on. Back when the market was extremely competitive and there was multiple offers and bidding wars, it was a lot more difficult for a buyer to make the decision to walk away from the transaction because at that point it was much harder to get your offer accepted. And, by the time you canceled and went out and found another home, prices could have gone up $20,000 or $30,000, depending on when that was. So, as the market slows, it's a little bit easier for buyers to walk away from deals, which is why sellers are now giving more concessions to keep them happy and to keep them in escrow. And then we're going to quickly look at some of these statistics that are more local to Southern California, because that's where I'm from. And that's where I believe most of our listeners are from as well. So in the Los Angeles metro, the share of home sales with concessions in the first quarter of 2025 was 56.1. So that's, decent amount higher than the national average. And it was at only 45.1% in the first quarter of 2024. So the Riverside metro, it was at 51.2%, up from 48.5% the year before. And in San Diego County, it's at 60.7%, and that's slightly down actually from 61.3% the year earlier. And then we also have the percentage of sales that fell out of escrow. So in the Anaheim, California metro, 13.5% of sales canceled, which was up from 12.8% the year before. In Los Angeles, 15.3% of pending sales canceled, up from 13.9%. And in Riverside, 16.4% canceled, up from 16.3% in 2024. And so that wraps it up. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. You can find this article on the Redfin website, or just let me know. I'd also be happy to send it to you. And as I mentioned before, if you're thinking about buying or selling a home in Southern California and you'd like some help, feel free to contact me. More than happy to answer any of your questions and let you know what I can do to help. Also, if you enjoyed watching, please hit the like button and subscribe if you like to stay up to date on the housing market.